Welcome to my online learning teaching session for all of you. I am SONAL SINGH, a psychology course academic counselor for IGNOU. Today we are going to continue with Foundation of Psychology Unit 2 that we started, and the second unit states up to be the more core content of psychology, cognitive psychology, which is sensation and perception. Coming to the core concepts of psychology, where we understand the process of thinking, we have contents like sensation and perception. They are core psychological contents which makes us understand how information falls on our sensory receptors and they meaningfully get interpreted by our thinking, reasoning, problem solving, decision making, and form a very core cognitive process which is called sensation. So let's get about in understanding what is sensation. Sensation is about getting all the sensory information on your sensory receptors, and it is just about getting the eye, ear, touch, smell, and taste, and some other set special receptors which get impinges on your senses. So, sensation will always be the first point where all the information falls on your sensory receptors and then make meaning, which is called something as perception. Naming of what all sensations that we have six in number. The five are the basic that we all have, which is eyes, nose, taste, touch, and skin, which composes the five. And there is one another special receptor that we hold on to, which is vestibular and kinesthetic. So we need to know when we are talking about sensation and perception, sensation is always the first step in the environment. How do we get to know about our world? As soon as you open your eyes, you see a picture. Let's take an example. You see a picture of children playing or a scenic beauty around you. The senses will make sure that you receive the colors. You receive the change in the environment on your audition, on your eyes, and on your smell, and probably the touch also, which is the skin. The environment is actually received in terms of physical energy. That is, the information that comes to your eye is a physical energy. It gets converted into electrical energy, goes to the brain, and that's how you make something which is an interpretation, completely psychological, which is called perception. So as we understand, perception is what? It is recognizing your environment, right? As soon as an information comes to you, let's take an example. There's a color red in front of us. What does the sense does? The sense sees it. The physical energy gets converted into electrical. The brain now interprets it, and now you will perceive it. What is the red color equivalent to? Red color is equivalent to probably blood. It is equivalent to a vegetable, which is tomato. This is what is interpretation, which is perception. So perception is a process through which we interpret and recognize the received information as to produce some conscious information. And remember, perception will always happen in your conscious mind. We studied before unconscious and conscious. It does not take place in your unconscious. Something that you cannot draw out, it will always take place in your conscious mind. Now, moving to understand, is there a difference between sensation and perception? There is. When we talk about sensation and perception, remember, sensation is first step, perception is the final. Sensation is a prime step where you only have sense organs working and receiving. Perception is an outproduct. The outproduct can be an overt product, it can be a covert product. Overt products are something which is observable, it is something which would be, probably being seen, an action done, a fight done, a painting which is being made. And at the same time, when we talk about covert, covert is covered. So this is how the two are different. One being the first step, second being the second step. And one is action, the other is understanding, receiving. So that's how perception and sensations are two different components. One receives the physical energy, the other, which is perception, is a meaningful whole as an outproduct. Let's come down to understand that when we talk about different senses, how do these senses actually work in our environment, and are they different from one another for individuals? First of all, yes, let's talk about human eye. As we talk about, human eye is taking 80% of stimulation from the environment. When I say 80% of stimulation, we need to understand eyes functions maximally in a human body. We receive umpteen amount of stimulation on your eyes. So eyes do have the adaptability. They do have the ability to adapt. They can change their adaptation from a light environment and from a dark environment. And to understand, human eye comprises of 80% of functionality of human body. Even audition is a high working sense, but human eye tops the functionality here. So speaking, we need to know our physical energy comes in form of senses. When anything falls on our senses, imagine if there is no physical energy, there would be no sensation. We talk about what are the different sense, basic sense that we have. Vision, you hear, you touch, you smell and taste. And there are some special ones which we talk about, which combines all of them, which is called vestibular and kinesthetic, that we will understand in the coming uh, hour that you have with me. Let's start with one senses each. What is vision? Speaking of your eye is a very complicated phenomena. It's a very complicated structure. We need to know few parts and functions of an eye. When we speak about the cornea, remember cornea is somewhere from the light enters to. Your light enters from the cornea, and then the refraction happens, and the rays, the nerves take those rays at the back of your optic nerve, and an inverted image, which is a complete proper image formed on your eye. Talking about celery muscle, remember celery muscle is to change the focal length of focal length of your lens. So the distance you move ahead, you move back, that's time your celery muscle is trying to adapt to the environment. There's a lighter light, you will move on the other side. When you're sitting in a dimmer area, you want to move aside to see what is visible and what is not visible. That is because of celery muscle. We have optic nerves. We all know optic nerve is responsible to sell the information that they receive to the brain. Now the brain will understand if the circle is of what color, what is its use, is it a ball that we are talking about as a circle, is it a football, is it a Costco ball. So that's the optic nerve that takes the information to the brain. Brain is something which gives you a meaningful output physiologically. We also are going to talk about iris. Iris is a muscle that controls the pupil, which is the size of the pupil. When we look at very far, we pinch our eyes a little because there's a lot of light coming. So what is happening? Your celery muscle and iris muscle is accommodating the object. It is making sure that you're able to see the object clearly. So these are little parts of eye that help us function, take the information physiologically, which is it is transducting physical energy, getting converted into electrical, and you have an image. Now, let's move to another topic to understand what does eye do to adapt? How do we say that the eyes are adapting to light? So there are two mechanisms that helps us understand that our eyes have the ability to adapt. One is called the light adaptation, the other is called the dark adaptation. So speaking of light and dark adaptation, remember darker adaptation is what? Your ability to adjust to a brighter light after you come from a dimmer area. So it is adjusting to a bright light after you are exposed to a dim light for a long period of time. This process of dim light is, after the exposure of very high light of environment, and it and the other on the other side that will take more time. So when we talk about the lighter adaptation, it's like you're adapting to the light. When we are talking about the darker adaptation, it is talking about the dark. I'll explain it again to support. When we talk about light adaptation, let's take light adaptation is moving from a cinema hall to outside. Did you realize it doesn't take much? It is like a process that you move out quickly and it doesn't take much time. The reason is as you move from a darker area to a lighter area, rods, the cells which are responsible for your reception at this point of time, which is black and white, and codes responsible for color is able to adapt, but rods takes time. Rods is taking time to get bleached. So as soon from a darker area, you're moving to a lighter area, bleaching happens. It will take almost 1 minute or 45 seconds for us. Lighter adaptation is rather quicker in comparison to dark adaptation. I'll tell you how. We move from the movie hall outside is light adaptation. Now when you move from outside to movie hall is dark adaptation. How you have you seen when you guys go for a movie, you take so much of time and you got late for a movie, you're unable to see the seats. You have to open your own cameras and your own light from the telephone, your phone, mobile phones to check out your seats. Why is it taking time? Because the road cells, which are responsible for black and white vision, takes a lot of time to regenerate. They take a lot of time to form your black and white vision in the darker area. So regeneration of the road cells take time. That's why darker adaptation is going to take much more higher time in comparison to light. Light talks about bleaching. The road cells get bleached. Bleaching happens in 45 seconds. But when we talk about darker adaptation, that takes place in probably 1 minute, 2 minutes, and more time. This is the two phenomena which our eyes have the ability of. We have the ability to adapt. That's why you're able to go to a lighter area and darker area, and few minutes you're able to adapt to it. Now, coming back to, there are some defects which happen in our visual acuity. Visual acuity is, the ability to discriminate the visual field and see properly. There are two kinds we all know. There is a nearsightedness, which is called myopia, and there is called farsightedness, which is called hyperopia. When we talk about something which is myopia, we're able to see nearer things properly, but the far things are not able to see. Children are usually suffering from myopia at a younger age because of excessive television watching, and also at times, the screen time in the pandemic has increased. A lot of children have had these defects called myopia. Speaking of hypermyopia, is something which happens with the process of aging also. We are not able to see a nearer things. So what do? We have lenses for that which support us for hypermyopia. So the hyperopia, which is called the farsightedness. These are two defects that your eyes suffer from, common defects of the visual acuity. Speaking of visual acuity, remember there's a place called fovea in your optic nerve which has no visual acuity. So you're not able to adapt, you're not able to see from that spot, which is called a blind spot near fovea. So this comprises and completes our understanding of something which is called an eye. Let's move to a second most used senses that we have around us is hearing. Your ear is enabling you to hear. Few of the major characteristics. Ear is a very simple structure to even understand and see. We need to know three proper characteristics of sound is pitch, loudness, and timbre. So when we talk about these three, they are the most commonly used in your environment. Pitch is what? Pitch is the highness and the lowness of your sound. So the reason we say that women have a high pitch and males have low pitch, the reason is that the shrillingness in the voice that adds more vibration is the highness of the pitch. Lowness of the pitch is something which is lesser vibrating. Someone who speaks and does not vibrate for a longer distance, the pitch is going to be less. Then we talk about loudness. Loudness in comparison to pitch has amplitude. So it does not have something which is vibration, but it expands and contracts. Male's voice, when we talk about female's voice, are more pitchy, which is higher in pitch, and male's voice are more higher in loudness. The reason for the same is it's high in loudness because there is a high amplitude. Their sound has an ability to expand and move to a longer distance. Then, coming to the last quality and characteristic of your sound is timbre. Timbre is the quality of sound, and the quality can be various. Like the sound from the Chennai is very different from the sound of the chirping birds, and at the same time, sound of the chirping birds is very different from the sound of the horn of the cars that you have. So this is the quality of sound which is called timbre. Three major characteristic to remember: pitch and loudness and timbre. Now speaking of how does the ear function, we will not go in intricate details. We will understand with a picture on the side. The ear has three components, which is the inner ear, the middle ear, and the external ear. The external ear, everyone can put their finger in the ear and understand it has a huge tunnel which goes inside till the middle ear. So the ability of the function of the external ear is to do what? To take the sound from the external hole that you have till the tunnel, and from the tunnel it reaches the middle ear. What does the middle ear do? There's a cochlea in the middle ear, which is a circular shell kind of structure. There, the sound vibrates 10 times. Whatever that has been spoken vibrates 10 times, and then it goes to the inner ear, which is the the vestibular and cochlear nerve, which takes it to the brain. So inner ear does what? It takes the information directly to the brain to make sense what is being said. So remember, when I'm speaking right now, the words goes to your external. External takes those words to your tunnel. The tunnel canal takes it to the middle. The middle ear vibrates it 10 times, and then it moves to something which is the internal ear, taking it to the brain. That's how physical energy gets converted into electrical. Electrical makes it brain, which is obviously electrical, makes moves it to the brain, and physiological function happens. Meaning is interpreted. You have a perception with you in hand. So that's how your ear functions. Let's move to another sense that we have, which is called smell. Smell is a sense. Always remember, the nasal cavity actually enables the air which is suspended around your nasal cavity, and these chemicals make sense of the kind of this cavity which is around your nasal, make sense of what chemical it is arousing and what kind of smell it is arousing. We all know that smell is not something which is very equivalent in all humans. We are not even smell apart to other species. There are species who smell better than us. To understand that factor is, the olfactory receptors which are there in your nasal cavity, they are suspended. For some species, they are far more superior than humans. I'll give you an example for this. Carlson in around 1998 stated that for the olfactory receptors to detect any chemical or substance, it has to be of a molecular weight which is from 15 to something which is 30 and beyond. So it has to be more than 15 and 30 and has to go to 300. So 1530 is the minimum. It has to go till 300. So when you talk about humans, we can remember we can smell something which is an odor. Let's take a bad odor can be something that you can smell, which is, let's take fire, can be smelled because it has a molecular weight starting minimal. It is starting from 40, 42, 43. So we can smell it because it's above 15. Sugar can't be smelled. Remember, if you have a coffee and a tea, can you smell the coffee and tea and tell that there is sugar in it? Because the molecular weight of sugar is far beyond 300. It is 342. That's why we cannot smell it. But remember, there are some species which have the olfactory receptors way superior than humans, as I said, which are dogs. That's why we have dog squads in crime scenes, because they have olfactory receptors much more than us, around 200 million receptors olfactory. We have something which is 10 million. From 2 million to 10 million, there's a huge gap. That's why dogs as species are quite superior in something which is olfaction. Also, to understand, there is a chemical substance called pheromones. It's not present in every species. It is present only in some species and not in humans. To understand, they trigger some special reactions in other individuals. So these are those chemical substances which are present in one, and it triggers reactions in the other. So this is called pheromones. Not present in all species. Very less number of species are inhibiting this. Also, to understand, smell as a olfactory receptors will have individual differences in humans. Some might smell a lot of various kinds of odors, which is bad odor, pleasant also having various components, and some can have maybe lesser in capacity. So we're highly different from one another in our strength of something which is smell. Come after smell, let's come to taste. Another important sensory receptor for us. Taste is primarily, talking about the how does taste come to us? The buds which are present on the top of the palate of our tongue. Also, to remember, the taste buds are not present everywhere. This is a misconception. So if you talk to somebody and somebody tell you, please tell them the taste buds are only present at the top and the side of your tongue palate. It's not scattered everywhere. It is not there everywhere. That's why I'll give you an example. When we have a hot coffee and the sides or the tip of our tongue gets burnt, remember it's the tip and the side. It's not the center, because the taste buds are not scattered, and that's why you cannot taste anything. Remember, if you burn the center of your tongue, you'll be able to taste everything, because the taste buds are not scattered at the center but at the tongue side, the U shape that you have of your tongue. That's why taste buds enables taste, even if it's burnt on the middle area but not on the side. The basic four tastes are sweet, we have salty, we have sour, and bitter. These are basic four tastes. I'm sure there are many when we taste different cuisine, which comes as a mixture of these taste bud, the basic taste. But four basic is salty, it's sweet, it is sour, and bitter. Also, the sensation of these taste differ, because when we taste something, not only the buds experiences the salty sweetness or the sourness, but also the temperature of the component that you're eating, the pressure, with the pressure that you're eating it. Also, at the same time, it is talking about the amount and content that you take in your mouth. So remember, when we talk about taste, taste has four basic taste that you have. It is dependent on the taste buds that you have on the side and the upper surface, the corners, and the sides. It is not at the center. It's never at the center. Your taste buds are not present at the center. And also, the taste differs because of the pressure that you take it, the intensity, the kind of cuisine that you're taking in, also the amount of food that you're taking in your mouth. Now, coming to the last, which is touch, we need to know skin is it's the largest organ of our body, sense organ of our body. It's present everywhere. Again, we have high individual differences in sense. Why? Touch is something which is commonly available. Like it's the entire body experiences touch. You all will experience different kind of touch at different part of the body. There is some part of body which is extremely sensitive, and there is some part of body which is not sensitive. Also, to remember, when we talk about individual differences, some people might have a high pain receptor, some people might have a high cold receptor, and some people might have a lesser pressure, warmth, and cold receptor. Highly individually different we are here. So the basic four touch that we experience is pressure, you have warmth, you have cold, and you have something which is pain. Speaking of the four, beside, we need to know the cold receptors are 6 times more in comparison to heat receptors that we experience. So there are more receptors of cold than heat. That's why in human body finds it very difficult to experience heat more in comparison to cold. And that's why the receptors being less, you feel more hot, you feel more humid, you feel more difficult and fidgety when you in an environment which is very hot. In comparison to people, now individual differences, comparison to people who are living in hot environments, their body has more hot receptors. In it builds with time. It's a very adaptory process. It builds with time more heat receptors than cold. But in general, we need to know cold receptors are largely present in more number in us in comparison to the heat receptors. As I said, coming to the last sense, which was special senses, which has a very small information, which is kinesthetic and vestibular sense. Kinesthetic is the body balance and movement. So, the ability to balance your body while walking, the ability to drive a car, the eye hand coordination, and the muscle movement. These are fine and gross motor skills. All working and functioning together and balancing body is kinesthetic sense. Vestibular, on the other end, is something which just talks about balance. So it is something which is going to talk about balancing your body, your ability to sit straight for a longer duration. We do not talk about here fine and gross motor skill coming in combination, but it essentially is gross motor skill, and it comes as a reaction. So, like, let's take an example. As soon you hear the bell and you get up from a chair, that would be vestibular, and it is a sudden urge to do something and being able to balance your body. Vestibular is not present in everybody. Kinesthetic is present in everybody in different intensity. Some people are very good with the kinesthetic skills. That's why they dance. They're able to, gymnast. The sports individuals are able to work and function properly. We finish with the five senses. with special senses to understand that sense becomes the first information before we make meaning of it and move to something, which is perception. Let's understand why perception is important. Perception is important to make sense of the world. I feel if you cannot make meaning of what you are seeing. So at the moment you're seeing this live online teaching learning session, imagine you hear everything, you see everything as a physical energy, but you're not able to interpret it. Remember, perception hasn't taken place. You have not understood. No meaning has come out. So the raw materials, when until not gets further processed and interpreted in a meaningful whole, it is not perception. Perception is extremely important to see, to understand, to view the world, to function in the world also. Also, coming to sensation, and when you view a picture in front of you, let's understand how this entire pattern works and what are the internal parts, the internal labels that we have in between. We have five senses that are stimuli. Stimuli is what? Any change in the environment that gives a response. So let's take an example. If you have suddenly, like let's take an example, the phone ringing, that's a stimuli. That's a change. You pick up your phone as soon as possible. So that's something which we talk about as stimuli. It could be sense, it could any five senses: vision, audition, olfaction, it could be taste, touch, smell, anything. Soon as you take this information, physical information in terms of sensory receptors, they get converted into perception. Some information is important and some information is not important. So, how do we use it? Remember, sensory receptors also have another function called attention. Attention is another important phenomena that comes into play after sensation. So let's take an example. In an entire day, you can take in approximately 9,000 sensation to maximally people taking 20,000. So as you walk down a lane, remember you're going for a walk on a new street. People moving around, there are vehicles moving around, there are labels, there are red lights. You can go up to 9,000 sensation falling onto your sense. Do you think all of them are important? No, not all of them are important. Probably you are gone there to pick up a commodity. Probably you have to buy a pen set or you need to buy a stationary item. What will you do? You will use a process called attention, which you can find on the image, which is sensory receptors move to attention. Attention is extremely important step to us, which goes hidden, but it's extremely important. Why? As you're walking down the street, if you don't attend a dump hole, you'll fall inside it. So attention is extremely important. Attention is selection of few out of many. So whatever you want to select, you only focus on that and you make meaning of the focused information. You interpret and give a response and perceive the focused information. So attention is extremely important. If you don't attend, remember you will have around 2,000, 5,000 perception and sensation, and you will make meaning of everything. You will get confused. You have to learn, remember so many things. So after you sense, you need to attend what is important and what is needed. And when you attend to that, that becomes a perception. So attention is something which is hidden but extremely important. Let's move to understand a little more about attention. It was defined as small certain number of stimuli coming from a larger pool of things. So I'll give you another example. Let's take an example. You go to a mall. You're looking for two of your friends amongst 50 people as soon as you enter the mall. Remember, if you don't attend and keep sensing, you will not be able to recognize your friends because you're looking at everybody. Attention helps you select the focus and select the certain thing that you want to interpret. As soon as you see your friends, your perception gets completed, you go to them and you start talking to them. So, what is attention doing? Attention is enabling perception. So, if remember, there is no attention, there is chaotic condition in perception. You will perceive everything, you will make meaning of a specific kind of music. Kind becomes the filter, and now you keep scrolling the channels until you are able to filter the kind of music that you want to listen to. So filter does what? Filter enables you to take the right kind of information inside and throughout the rest. So what will happen? You're not exhausted anymore. The unnecessary information will not be used, only the focused one stays with you. and the non-useful information is thrown out. That's how, in a room that you stay, or in a classroom of yours, has a dustbin, so that all the unnecessary information, the papers which has been wrong written or not copied well, are thrown out. Your bin and things which are not useful is thrown out. Similarly, your mind, while it is attending, also has a filter theory by Broadbent, which says the relevant, useful, important comes inside the filter, you perceive it, and the rest gets goes to the bin. It gets thrown out. You cannot access it later also, and not even now. Also, there are some factors you will know that impacts attention. There are internal and external factors. Internal factors are within you, so these internal factors can be something which is motivation, your interest, your drivenness to do something. I'll give you another example for internal as a factor impacting attention. You have an exam, let's take you have an exam of psychology, and you probably like developmental psychology more than something which is biological psychology. So what will happen? You do not have interest in biological psychology, you will not be motivated, you will not feel driven towards it, you will lack interest, right? What will happen? We will not study for it. So as the internal phenomena are making you not pay attention to a content, your internal factors are completely taking over the fact process of attention. Now let's take some external factors which are not present within you, but it's present outside, which catches our attention. The size, shape, movement of a thing. Like as you're in a red light area, and suddenly there's a car which zooms next to you and move. That sudden movement catches attention. It's external. So movement, novelty, that is creativity, and size. If there's a huge, I will not say, we don't find animals which are big, I feel, in the Delhi NCR metropolitan city. But if you find an elephant or a camel around, I'm sure all the children are attracted to see that animal. Why? We don't say such huge, humongous animals in our metros. So that's again an external factor of size, different shape, odd shape, novel ideas. These attract our attention. So these are some internal and external factors that will impact you while you're attending. It can increase your attention, and at the same time, I told it can decrease your attention also. So if you do not have the interest, do not have the motivation, do not understand a topic, which is cognition, your understanding, reasoning, memorization is not good, you will not attend to that topic. You will not be able to also to attend to that topic. That finishes with something which is attention, which is a very hidden phenomena during the process of perception that you have. Now, moving, as I said, there are some types of attentions also that you have. Majorly, we have three types, which is selective, focused, and divided. When we talk about focused is also called as sustained attention. Selective attention is equivalent to the definition of attention, selecting few from the many. So, whatever that you want to select, you just pick that up and you move out. So, let's take an example. There is many food items on the platter, but you probably just want to pick up a bowl of salad. So you pick up that bowl of salad and move, despite there are 10 and 9 items on the platter or on the food desk. So that is selective. You pick up what you want and you move away. What is focused and sustained attention? This is something which is extremely important for monotonous jobs and or studying also. Sitting for long hours for 5 or 4 is sustained. The ability to sustain attention, which is to take your attention, go on for a number of hours or probably for a long duration, is called sustain. Sustained attention is extremely important for studying long hours. It is also, I'll give you a very unique example. The people who are weather checkers and the radar checkers who tell you the weather forecasting and also during natural calamities, they are very good with sustained attention. They scientifically observing and screen, on the radar screens, they are observing it day and night, and it goes on from 8 to 9 hours shift for people over there. So scientists also, especially the radar screen scientists, which looks forward for natural calamities and weather changes, are having sustained attention, which is a source of information is focused for a longer duration. Then there's another one which is called divided attention, a very, I think, something which children are usually using nowadays, which is listening to a friend in the class and listening to the teacher also. So your attention gets divided. You get pieces and bits from your friend also, and you get pieces and bits from your teachers also. So here what happened is you're able to juggle between multiple stimuli, multiple objects, multiple things that can give a response. So these are three kinds of attention that you have: selective, focus, divided. While perception, you can make use of any three of them, at times two simultaneously, but any three of them can be used in terms to make sense of it, which is called to come down to a last out product, which is called perception. So moving ahead from the fact that does perception happens in the blink of an eye? Does not have any process? We do not have a steps. We do. Perception does not happen as you take in information from senses, you attend it, and you have a meaning here. There are other things which, as cognitively, which is thinking, reasoning, that happens in the stages of perception also. There's a step one. When you are perceiving, when you're interpreting and making meaning, let's take an example as I gave in the beginning. You see a round color item, which is red in color, a round item, red in color. Now, first, what will happen? You will select that item that you have to observe it and understand. If it is of no use to you, you might not select it, you might not understand it. So, selection is the first thing. Selection equals to selective attention. So, the phenomena of selective attention is functioning here. Once you select that this is what I want to make sense about, you move to organization. Organization talks about using laws of organizational principle. This is something which we will do next after this. According to perception, perceptions have some laws of organization. This was given by Gestalt psychology, which we did on the first teaching learning session of ours, which spoke of Gestalt psychology and evolution. So there are some laws that tell us how do we organize some items in our mind by using these principles. Second step is organization. So you have a ball which is red in color. Now you want to organize and understand it. Last is interpretation. So you select the item, you organize the item. If it's only one item, it's already organized in front of you. If there are many, you have to use the laws, and then you interpret, which is attach some meaning from your prior experience, or probably make a meaning at the same point of time. So it is selection, organization, and interpretation that happens. Moving, there is types of perception also. Remember, we are individuals different from one another. We have high individual differences here also. How? There are two kinds of perceptual process. So if you're watching this with your friends, you can just identify there are two types. You can find this image over here. This image will tell you. See, I hope everyone can see that image, which looks like 13 also, and it looks like a bee also. I'm telling you that before you check it out. So there are two kinds of processing. One is top down, the other is bottom up. So top down processing and bottom up processing are two different perceptual processing types that you have. Some of you use the top down processing. What is top down? Top down says that it uses its prior information. So when it is using its prior information, your prior knowledge is helping you interpret what is it. So imagine if a child is recently learned the ABCD scenario, he or she will see this image as B. Why? Because the prior information is supporting them. It is helping them to make use of the image that is in front of you. And some old knowledge. I just learned ABCD and this looks like B, so this has to be B. That is top down. The other one that we have is a bottom up processing. This is somewhere in terms when we talk about where the sensory information falls on your sense organ and you take the information as it is. So there is no prior knowledge. You cannot use the prior knowledge. People see the image as it is. Some people might see might see this image as what? One standing line which is there, and there's a three. So you don't take it as a B, but you take one standing line, one and three horizontal lines in between. That is something which is a bottom up processing. So remember, two kinds of processing that we all have. The first is top down, the other is bottom up. Top down has the use of prior knowledge. You have the ability to use the prior knowledge that you have, and at the same time it's a direct process. You already know what it looked like from your prior knowledge, so it's a very direct process. You have an entire thing in front of you. The other one is a bottom up. Why? you will see the information as it is. Standing lines, sleeping lines, probably a box. You don't make use of your prior knowledge. It's an indirect information. So you understand the information from pieces to whole. The other one is from whole to pieces. Top down is from whole to pieces. So this is the two kind of processing that you have. You can all see. So I'll give you an example. You go to a market and probably you want to buy something. Let's take grocery items that you want to buy, or probably fruits that you want to buy. Not two individual different in their processing. The one which is a top down processing will understand a market always looks having vegetables on one side and fruits on one side. So I probably will find and you know chalk out my plan of finding my item like that. So using their prior knowledge. On the other end, the other one is a bottom up. He feels I don't know market. I probably have to check every vendor, go in a straight line everywhere and check everything. They are moving from pieces to whole. They want to make an understanding, but from pieces to whole. So this is how two people can differentiate from the kinds of perception in terms of their perception process. Perception is a very complicated yet a very interesting topic to understand. Now, let's understand the laws that we had of organization. These are called Gestalt principles, remember? These laws are very important. Gestalt psychology was well known for these laws of principles. Gestalt, I'll give a quick review. Gestalt is also refers to as a unified whole. It's a German word, so it's called as a unified whole. Also, going back to the process of perception, we select and we organize. Organization happens from these laws. So let's take the same example. We have so many balls in front of us which are red in color. We don't know if it's a Costco ball, if it's a football, or these are small TT balls that you have. So what do? You use the laws of organization to understand what do they look like and where they are used. So let's start with these principles to understand what Gestalt tried to tell us. First of all, as I give you a recap, it is a form psychology given by Gestalt. Gestalt for people who gave one bigger statement: whole is bigger than the sum of the parts, which is you cannot understand things in pieces, but you can understand them in a whole. I don't know. I would like to give another example here to understand whole is different from the sum of the parts. When you used to go to Diwali fairs, there used to be a small camera within a box, and there used to be a reel of pictures we used to keep moving. So one reel comes, another reel comes, another reel comes. Imagine if the reels have pause in between. One picture, 5 second pause, another picture, five. You cannot make sense of that entire little small, play that happens in that box inside. It has to go continuously. When pictures come one after the other, they make sense, and that's how you understand the little movie that is played in front of you. Even movie theaters. Imagine if movie theaters show scene one, then scene two, then scene three. You cannot make sense of the movie. So whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. This was a very renowned principle that we have, which was given by Gestalt psychologists. Let's start with principles that we have. First principle is the principle of figure and ground. Very simple principle happening all around our world, something that you utilize everywhere, which is in an environment, there is something which is a figure, and in an environment, there is something which is a ground. Um, Look at the sky. The birds flying would be figure, the aeroplane flying would be the figure, and the ground is going to be the sky. Sky is the background. Sky is lighter in color mostly. That's why you can see the figure. Even in the description that I have for you, the background would be the color on which my words are falling. The words become the figure. Figure and smaller in size. They are also more vibrant than the ground. So this is how you make sense of a room. You understand a room, and similarly I can understand the example. If I want to understand the different kind of circular balls that I'm seeing, so when I see the ball moving on the ground and it's bounce from a distance, I will understand what is it. So that's a figure in ground. So as soon as you throw it on the ground, you understand, oh, it's a very small and it can bounce. It's a Costco ball. It's a huge ball. When I throw it on the ground, I understand it's a football. Figure and ground. That's the first example. I've shown you a picture. This is these are very famous pictures of figure and ground. I'm sure a lot of you can see the tree. The one who sees the tree sees the darker portion as the picture. A lot of you can view a monkey and a tiger also. So a lot of you are seeing the black color as the ground, and the white color monkey, gorilla, and the tiger as something which is the figure. So this is the figure in ground example. This is one of the famous Reuben vase examples that you have in psychology. Both of the figures are same, just in terms of shape they are different. Like one is bigger, the other is not. A lot of you view the vase because vase in darker in color. See the next picture adjacent to the vase. A lot of you can see the faces. Why? Because the vase has become the lighter color. As I said, the lighter color is always the ground and the darker color is the figure. Now move to the next law. This was the law of figure and ground, right? It helps us organize something which is your environment. It makes you easy to identify your environment, what is the figure and what's the ground. Now the next is proximity. Very simple. Proximity is any object which is closely together are seen to be together and we make sense of it. Easy example: move inside a class, you find 2 to 3 children sitting together, talking together, always together, you tell them to be friends, don't we? That's something which is as figure sorry that's something which is the law of proximity. An example which is given on my image also, you will find one which has circular together, it looks like a square and can also be taken as a mat. On the other, there are two lines which shows proximal circle lines together, which can be taken as the rail lines or the two blocks that we have. So proximity enables us to make sense of the information. So how perception is happening? It's happening because of organization. We are able to organize because of figure and ground, and second with proximity. Now let's move to the next that we have. The other that we talk about is the law of pragnance, law of symmetry, law of good figure. So law of pragnance is the ability, it's a German word again, pragnance. You'll find a lot of German words because it was a German, Gestalt is a German psychologist, production, as we said, Max Wertheimer, Kafka, and Kohler. So you'll find a lot of German words used in between. Pragnance is a good figure. Everyone wants to see something which is balanced, a shape which is recognizable, something which is stable. So I'll show you a picture here. What do we understand by this? These are Olympic circles, right? Stable form. You've seen it, you can label it easily, can't we? So this is how we have something which is figure and ground, which is three ones that we talk about: the figure and ground, the proximity, and law of pragnance. Law of pragnance is the ability to see something which is stable, already as a figure, balanced figure, seen before, easily to label. So these rings were something which is the Olympic rings, already seen, very stable, labeled worldwide, you can recognize it. Now the next is the law of continuation, as the figure suggests. See, this law says anything which is moving in continuation is perceived as a figure. So when you see these, your ability to see the cross would be one, because they have the similar color. Also, the crosses in this time you might see them as like this, a cross like this, not like this. So that's again continuation. River is an example of continuation. Remember, we the ability to call them a river, with the ability to call it flowing water, is because it is continuing. That's why lakes and little ponds cannot have any motion. They don't have any motion, they don't have any continuity. We do not find them as an organized whole, we don't call them a river also. So continuity is something, anything which is found in continuous motion is seen as an organized figure. Example is given on the on your screen again. Now move to, let's take to the next law that we have, which is the law of common faith. When we say law of common faith, it involves movement and again symmetry. I'll give you an example. The picture that you see is something which is a law of common fate. Whenever you find birds moving in a proper synchrony, and you find them moving together, you might find, make a triangle. You can make a triangle of the picture that I've shown. Also, it involves movement. They're moving together in a triangle like this. Also, traffic jams. Whenever we find cars moving in a jam, we find one ray of car moving together. That's a law of common fate, which is cars moving together in a synchrony. And remember, the law of common fate says movement and forming a figure in terms of its symmetry that it forms. So that could be also during our Republic Days and our Republic Day parades and everything. We have a lot of airplanes and fighter planes over the sky moving, and they move in a direction of triangle. That's also an example of law of common fate that we have. Next, let's move to something which is law of closure. Very simple, commonly found. This is something that you can find very commonly around yourself, which is seeing the image. What do we see? We can make it as a triangle, three half circles formed in a shape of a triangle. So it's the ability of your senses to see figures that's complete. So if they're incomplete also, you will look them as complete figures, the figure below. Now let's move to law of similarity that you just found the figure in front of you. Law of similarity states that similar things are seen as together. Similar things seen together. So you can see the circles together, the colors of pink and the colors of purple. Now you can see the other pinks and the other purple. No matter they are different in their shape, but they're similar in their colors. So we see the colored items together. So similarity gives you organization. That's why we have, whenever we tell gender specific lines for reservations, female gender, we have now boxes in, we have compartments in metros. That's also the organization. Everyone knows the first compartment is a women compartment. Why? This is because of similarity of gender, similar genders to be traveling together. That's again a principle of similarity. These are principles that enables you to see your environment and perceive them as a whole. You're able to organize, select, organize, and interpret. So these laws help you and support you in your perception for organization. So such a beautiful image of Gestalt itself, which gives you all of the laws there. See, the G is the common fate. It's moving together, the GGG. And we know the second one is E, which is closure. No matter the first and the bottom line is missing, we'll find it closure. The next is continuity. The S is a continuous pattern. You know it's an S. Then we have proximity. Because of proximity, you all can understand it's a T. Why proximity did I say? See the color of the T on this side and the color of the T on this side. They're holding proximity, forming a shape, which is T. Then we have A. We all can see figure and ground, a little banner of white color and the shade of dark blue. Then we have L. L again can be seen as the common region. Common region is very similar to something which is proximity. It is just given a new name to us. And the last is again coming to symmetry, which is similar to the law of Pragnance, which is seeing something to be stable. We've seen a T already. We will see this also as a D. So pragnance is something you want to see as stable. You want to see something which is recognizable, which is already known in the environment. So the T was already known in proximity. We can see it as another T as symmetry, law of pragnance, etc. This completes with something which is law of principles that helps you organize your perception. Now let's move to factors impacting perception. Very simple. There are many factors impacting perception. There could be factors in the perceiver, our attitude, our motives, our interest and expectation. So let's label it and understand. If see the first, let's start with the motivation and the need or set as perceptual determinant, which is whenever there's a need to get impacted, the perception will be changed. Which is there was an experiment which was done by Stanford, and it's such a nice thing. Our basic need is hunger. Whenever you are hungry, you see any image, you'll find it as food items only. So this was an experiment done in 1936 by Stanford, and he stated that the subjects were very hungry. Whatever image that was shown, even images of people, they felt that it was food because they were hungry. It's a need. It's a perceptual set in the mind. Oh, I'm hungry right now. I need this. So the need or motivation, sense of being driven to satiate their hunger, will impact your perception about environment. Then also effect of expectation or perceptual expectancy. These are very famous experiments that you will find, which was the set of expectation and perceptual expectancy. I'll give you an example also for this. Remember when mothers know that at 6 a.m. there's a milkman which is going to drop a milk bottle at the door. So any doorbell or any sound is what? It is impacting your perception. Oh, it's the milkman. Remember, it's somebody else at 6 a.m. at the door. But what do mothers feel? No, it's the milkman. Why? Because there's a proper time and expectation which is already set, which is impacting your perception. So this is what is as taken as the effect of perception. It is also called as perceptual expectancy. Effect of emotions are very high. McGuinness found that using different words can impact your perception. Like imagine in a word where we use, I'll give you an example, critical words. If someone says, I had a bad day, okay, this is one sentence, which is a neutral sentence. Imagine someone said it has been a day filled with atrocity and day filled with atrocities and horrific tragedies in my life. These terms will make you attract more, you know, thought, and you will perceive them to be more griever. Your ideas, your thoughts will change more. That's why pictures will, which comes with lot of emotional content and with a lot of emotional dialogue, they impact you more, they make you perceive more emotion, they change your perception. Then we have the impact of stimulus characteristic. Stimulus characteristic is the thing, that your object that you are perceiving bigger. It could be novel, it could be sound, it could be similar, it could be moving. So anything which is novel, anything which is big shape, size, it is loud, it can obviously change your perception. Then there is an effect of experience, which is again similar shape, and it modifies also your experience. Prior experience can change your perception, which is, let's take an example. Today children use pencils which are of different shapes, animal shapes, and little birds in shape. We at times are not able to understand, as adults, are they pencils, are they stationary items, because of our effect of experience. We've never had such things in prior knowledge. And the last is impact of culture. Culture is a huge thing. We all need to know that in some culture, this is taken as very good in Indians. In Africa, this is taken as rude. We do not show this thing in Africa. It's taken as rude. Thumbs up is taken really bad in European countries. In India, it's taken really nice in the Indian countries. So that is some examples. Now let's move to the most and the last important introduction that we will continue from the next. Is after understanding, we have perception. Perception takes place in selection mode. The next process is organization, and then we interpret it. We have factors impacting perception. We have something which is, when we talk about perception, we have laws of organization. We have one intricate detail to start with, which is called depth perception, a detailed concept which we will continue. And depth perception to introduce today is depth perception enables you to have a three-dimensional image. I'm sure people who studied, we all have studied maths in this way, three-dimensional. So the ability to, view an object from all the dimension, the width, the distance, and the depth is called depth perception. Remember, our eye does not have that ability. Our eyes are two-dimensional. So there are cues. Cues are supporting guidance that help us to enable with depth perception. So let's define what is depth in scientific ways. It refers to one's visual ability to perceive the world in three dimension. That it enables you to judge an object moving at a distance, changing its route. Imagine if there is no depth perception, you can never drive cars. Why? The rear view mirrors will not tell you. That's why the rear view mirror says that the car is actually, closer in distance, farther in distance as it is perceived. So remember, if this wouldn't have been there, we cannot see the movement of cars. You couldn't have, when we actually see videos today in 3Ds, you wouldn't have enjoyed that. Paintings which look so live wouldn't been able to made at that point of time. So no depth perception becomes very difficult in the environment. Traveling on roads, driving on roads, river rafting, such activities would have been completely gone away. Also, there are two cues, as I said, which support us, which is monocular cue and binocular cue. Completing this, we understand to complete and carry out our depth perception in the next section to know that your depth is understood in one eye thought, which is monocular, and two eye thought, which is binocular. So hope perception has been both interesting, a difficult content, but been very interesting to understand and apply these today around to understand how perceptions takes place. Thank you. Namaste.